So I'm going to go and get us kicked off. Today we are going to be covering the contact application. So if you're new to the stream, we've been following along with this outline as listed here in our repo. Essentially what we've been doing is building a contact tracking application from very beginning to end. So the idea is we started with the thought, and now we're working on building it. We've been doing it about 2 months now, but your typical application shouldn't take 2 months to do. It's just we've been doing it 1 hour at a time and at a slow instructional space. So if you visit the outline, you'll see a lot of what we've covered. We started off with the introduction to 3 different IDEs. We then started building out the model, worked on the data layer, built out unit tests for it. You'll also notice that you'll see links like this scattered throughout video and source. What this means is that we went through and introduced mocks during that time. You can watch the video of that session by clicking on this link. It'll take you to the YouTube page. And if you want to see the source code of it at that point in time when the video was done, you can click on this link here. If there's any third-party products that we've introduced or anything else, they'll be covered here in the guide. Here we see that we had alternatives to mock. We could use Microsoft Fakes or tell her it's just mock. We chose to not do that. Then we started working on the data persistence layer. We broke out our data model into separate layers and separate databases so that in the future, when we start going live, we can choose to not use SQLite and maybe use something else. We're going to spend a couple of weeks, I think it was like 2 weeks, exploring and exposing our application into an API. We then documented the API using Swagger, made a couple of assorted improvements to it, spent a couple of days adding API, and for the last week or so, we've been working on building out the MVC application. And that's what we're going to cover up. If you were here Thursday, you'll notice some changes to the application. I did some changes over the weekend, and I did a stream on Saturday, which covered it. Essentially, we did 3 different things. We created a new contact service. We moved the configuration from SQLite out of the hard-coded connections inside the application to the configuration. And then we just got rid of some unneeded to-do things we took care of. Now we're going to focus on the actual application itself. So let's take a look at that. Quick overview, we added this new services and this contact service, which does all the work of going out to the data or going out to our API, handling the authentication, then coming back. So I am going to launch the API so it's running in the background. And then we're going to go take a look at our web app. So it should appear on a different page, which it did, but you can't see it because it's off screen. So let's take a look at our controller for the web API, for the web UI. We have the home controller, which we really didn't touch outside of some changes like changing my name and that kind of stuff. Now we'll take a look at the controller. So the controller has 2 actions. I added this one on Saturday just to play around with it. And now these actions, in this particular case, does an index, which returns a list of all the contacts. You can drill into the contact service to see all the work. But essentially it says, give me a list of contacts, and it comes back. Now that we have that list of contacts, we want to display them. So let's see what it looks like now, and then how we're going to go and change it. So we're going to want to start our contacts web UI and hit play. Now we'll make sure that that is working. We might get some authentication errors. There are some local issues when we're running the code, depending on when the last time logged out and that kind of stuff. So if it doesn't work and we get this, That means I have to clear the cookies. You won't have to do this in production. This is only because I've been doing a lot of testing and development around it. Once I clear the cookies, it goes and gets a refreshed version of it. And this is what we're displaying. Hello from context index and a list of all the individual people. So let's clean this up so it's not just a basic list. So this site uses something called Bootstrap. It's one of the out-of-the-box templates. Bootstrap is a web user interface framework that a lot of sites use now. And they're currently on version 4.5. Version 5 went out or came out in beta last week. We're not going to mess around with 5. We'll take care of 4. But essentially, Bootstrap allows you to come up with a pretty clean, decent interface. So we're going to use some of the features of Bootstrap. This really doesn't have anything to do with building the MVC application. We took care of the MVC part, or we took care of the M&C part. Now we're going to take care of the view and kind of make it pretty. So we're not just seeing a bulleted list of people, but we'll add more details to the people. So we don't have to do anything with getting started because it's already, like I said, part of the templates. And you can see that by going into the www root folder and open up CSS. You'll see there's a site one here. This is for your customizations, and then your JavaScript for your customizations, but there's nothing with Bootstrap in there. That's because in recent updates to templates, at least recent since last time I did file new project, Microsoft moved a lot of the out-of-the-box libraries and third-party libraries into a lib folder. Because what they found out is that 9 times out of 10, you don't really modify these, and you want to keep that. You want to keep the CSS and JavaScript folders different. So you'll see Bootstrap here and its required dependencies, jQuery and jQuery validation. They're also outlined or referenced inside of our layout. So we look in our layout, we should see, as we see right here, Bootstrap, Bootstrap min, and our site CS in case you want to do it. And for speed and use, we want to be able to load the JavaScript afterwards. So you see a bunch of JavaScript at the bottom. This little append version equals true. You typically want to do this in development a lot because this prevents caching of your JavaScript files. But we'll get into that if we do any more custom development work. Let's change this. I don't really like the way the title sits, so we are going to do page title here and do context viewer. And this will allow us to change the page later. So how do we go about changing that? If you remember, we created views inside the contact folder. Index is the one we're dealing with, but you can double check by looking at the controller. By convention, it said ASP.NET has a lot of conventions it follows. Ooh, look at that, an unknown using. Things that start or end with the word controller are typically assumed to be controllers in here. If you specify, well, you have to specify a method name, but if you don't specify the action to, or the view to return in your action, it's going to assume that you want the index.cs HTML. So that's why we have an index here and a default here and an index here and a default here. So let's go and take a look at our index. So here we see it saying home page. We didn't want to do that. View contacts. Now this is the hello from contact.indexes, which we see here, hello from contact indexes. and then this bulleted list. So if we look back, we see this bulleted list. So first off, we're going to probably want to change that. So let's take a look at the Bootstrap options that we have. So here we'd go to the documentation, and then there's a couple of different things. I suggest you go through and read up on Bootstrap a lot if you are going to do it. I have offered lots of different trainings on it, but it's kind of outside the scope of this. The layout kind of talks more about it. We're not going to go into detail. We're just going to kind of make this page prettier. And then the different components it has, you'll see that there are a lot of components. So we're going to use a mixture of all these throughout. But let's start off with the kind of the main ones. We already used the nav bar. That's the navigation. So if we look at our page, that's this section right here. That's the nav bar. We already have one of those, but we want to put something like this, a nice heading to it. So if we look at our Chrome tools, or in our case, Edge, because that's what I'm using, you go and do more tools and then developer tools. Your shortcut will vary. Sometimes it's F12. Sometimes it's Option Window I or Option Command I. This kind of shows you everything you need to know about it. And let's just kind of make this a little bit bigger so we can see. And then I'm going to take a little bit of inspection here and see what it says. It is a H1 tag. So kind of assume so, but just want to make it. So let's put an H1 tag and then say contacts. And then let's go and create some text here. These are the contacts that we have been building on coding with JoeG. Now we go through the list. So what do we have for list? Let's go take a look at Bootstrap to see. There's something called a list group, which kind of puts them in a grid-like shape. There are, what else do we have? We really don't have anything else that fits with that. So let's go take a look at some of the layout options we have. We have the grid, we have that. Nothing really in there. That kind of talks to how the screen resizes and stuff. Let's take a look at some of the utilities we have. Clear, fix, close icon, colors, display. Nothing that really helps, or nothing that really helps us. We want to do something with the content. We have the typography option, which we kind of looked at, which shows headings and everything else. What code looks like, what images, but we want tables. We want our tables to kind of look prettier. We're going to start displaying everything in a table and go on. Let's take a look how to do that. So let's start here, and we're just going to keep that here for now, and we'll start out a new one. Let's do a table, and we have to give it a class of table. We give it a class in CSS. What that does is tells the browser to style this table, which is an HTML object, with the class table. Yes, the names are confusing. The reason why you have to actually add the word table is because in a lot of older websites, they use table to kind of control styling and positioning. But we don't really need to do that anymore, but this was meant more for backwards compatibility. And then the table has two sections, a table head and a table body. it's good practice generally to have both of these in here. Table head is for things you want to include in the table. So here we are going to include a table row first, and then we want to add our table heads. So this is for the different kind of properties or different column headings. We look at our sample here, they have 4 items in it: a pound sign, which is the number, the first name, last name, middle name. So let's do something similar to that. The scope command is Bootstrap specific, tells you how you want to lay that out. Let's do ID for now. We'll want to display the ID for later. We can add and change these fields as we need, but I'm just going to go with some of the basics. TH, scope, column, column, last name, and then let's do scope, column, and then full name. And now, yay, I have a new follower. Oh, and it actually worked too. I haven't been able to see it work because no one's followed me throughout. Welcome, DJ. Wow, that's a really long name. See if I can figure that out. Hello. Oh, I'm going to need help pronounce that name. Call you DJ for now. Hello to you. Thanks for the follow. So now we have the head. Let's do the body. So that's the first one. Now here we are going to do more than one row. So we looked at that and we did that this way. So let's kind of copy out this here. And now we're going to kind of loop through all these. So for each of them, we need to create a row. And then we are going to need to create a column for each. We have 4 columns defined. So we are going to want to define 4. Oops, hit the wrong button there. Sorry about that. We are going to want to display the 4 columns. And let's get rid of this bad boy. We don't need that anymore. And what do we put in here? Contact dot. Oops, gotta do that. Contact dot contact ID at contact dot first name at contact dot last name, and then at contact dot full name. So now we have a little bit clearer what we're actually kind of explaining or what we want to do. We're creating a table. Here are headings. Then we're going to loop through each one of the contacts in our model, and we're going to return these items. I'm going to keep this here for now just to make sure we have the data right. Then we'll come back and remove it. So let's save this, and we are going to restart the user interface. If we did it right, we should have a pretty heading here with some text and a name. This is really annoying that you have to do that. Sorry about that. I have to figure out a way to do it, or maybe disable that. Here we go. We have a list of contacts. That's the text. Now we have an ID and all the names across. So already that's a little bit prettier. Let's see what else we can do. So let's take this off because we don't need that anymore. We look at Bootstrap. Where were we? On the typography page or the components page. We have this little bit nicer text. So let's see what that text is. I think it's called a lead. Yep. So let's go and take a look at adding the lead. I think you can see that in utilities. Oh, maybe it's under content. Typography. Ooh, we probably should have made the first one display heading. Display heading slightly different. Yes, we want the lead. So let's wrap our text in that class to make it a little bit nicer. So I'm going to put a P here. P stands for paragraph in the HTML world. Ooh, it's a little bit of IntelliSense kicking in. Now if I hit save, I should be able to refresh this and see those changes. Nope, because it's Razor, I probably have to stop and recompile it. So DJ, how did you join us? Where'd you hear about us from? I really wish I didn't have to clear the cookies every time I start it. There you go, now it's a little bit clearer. Now let's see what else we can do with that table. I'm going to go and open this up in a new tab so we can keep coming back to it. I personally, well, we don't want dark because we're doing everything else dark here. Maybe do something like this. Do table head dark. And then what else? Let's do table head dark. And then stripe rows. I like stripe rows. So let's do that. So we're going to put stripe there. And this, I think, was class equals T head dark. Save. Restart. While that's restarting, I'm going to clear the cookies behind the scenes. There you go. So that's a little bit clearer. And that's probably all we want to do. At some point, we'll probably want to add paging and let it go. But now we have a simple view of how it works. So how do we go about adding links to it? What if I want to see more details about Joseph? What if I want to see his email address or phone number? Typically, you would go to something like a details page. Very similar to the way the web API worked. You know, we were at contact / all them. Now we're looking at the details with an identifier. But just like that, we don't really have a lot of data to it. So let's go and clean that up a little. Before we go and clean that up, let's take a look at what our options. So we looked at tables already. We looked at images, but we don't have any images. Wait. That's typography. Oh, they're all on the same page. I don't know why I shot that up. Let's do this one as components. What else would we want to display? Let's just get the data on the page and then we'll kind of clean it up or bootstrapify it. So here we have me. Let's see what additional data we want to provide for me. So I'm going to go to my Explorer, open up details. So this we're going to change a little bit. We want this details to show my name. So let's do @model.fullname. So now it's going to display whatever the home page is, dash Joseph Wadagno. We can actually do this. Details. That dash And now I'll say contact application, or whatever we named it, details, and then Joseph would diagnose. So let's see what properties we have to display. And I think I'd have all these memorized by heart, but I don't. Let's go look at our contact. And first name, middle, last name, email, date of birth, anniversary. Let's go. And I'm just going to copy these over. We'll delete the stuff just so I don't forget what they are. So we're going to do model dot first name, model dot middle, model dot last, model dot email, model dot birthday, and then model dot anniversary, and then I think I had a model dot image URL. We're not going to use it right now because I don't think we have any images, but maybe we'll just add one to see. So if I just list all these properties and restart this, it's going to look quite funny on our screen, actually. Contacts, failure. I gotta see if I'm doing something wrong that I keep getting this. And we actually want details /1. So here it is. It just listed out everything. You'll also notice in the title, it now says contact viewer, details, Joseph J. would diagnose. So that's cool. All the other fields just kind of blur together. So how do I get to this page without having to manually type everything? Let's fix that first before we come back here and fix all these other things. So in order to do that, we need to put a hyperlink from that one page out to the other. So let's go and do that on our index. So let's say we want to click on the contact ID and take us there, because the contact ID is that identifier. So we are going to want to create a link from this page to the next. So you typically do that with a hyperlink. A hyperlink looks something like that. Oops, not hidden. href equals something, and then text. So this will appear as text on the screen, and then a link to where you want to go. So we want to turn this into a hyperlink. So I think they have something called an HTML helper. So let me check that. There it is, HTML dot link. Action link is what I want right here. And we tell it where we want it to go. So the link text we want to just still say the contact ID. Let's close that so it doesn't complain. What action do we want it to go to? So we want this to go to the index action. And Writers IntelliSense was smart enough to realize where we're going. I actually want it to go to details. And then controller name or everything else. I don't think I need the controller name, but I will add it just to make sure. And where to go? Link text, action name. And then I did not see it, comma, contact. Yeah, it should want the hard-coded string for it. And why are we complaining? Action name, string controller, protocol, those are all optional. Oh, because I actually don't need the controller. It's going to assume the same controller. Looking at the overloads. And this is complaining because it wants a string. Oh, this should be toString. And then here we have to give it optional parameters. Since it wants an ID, we need to give it the ID. And I think we can just do contact dot contact ID. Now we did all that right. This should create a link that says number 1 in it that points us to details/1. Let's restart that. Give it a check. Let's clear out U. That wasn't fast enough. Click on contacts. Now these are all links, and you can see they're all links, but if I hover over them, this is going to be kind of hard to see in the browser. But oh, the text is still there. Let's zoom out, but if you watch down here, as I hover over, it just says contact/details. So it's missing the identifier. Let's see how I go about adding that. So ASP.NET Core, MVC, and route. You guys call route data. Anchor tag helpers. Let's see what this one says. Yeah, I got that already. That already. Yeah, don't need that. I need the actual name. Come on, give me a name. Give me a name. Don't want to route to areas. Don't want to route to name pipe. ASP route ID. That seems like it's overkill. But let's go and take a... Oh, where'd I go? I forgot the section of text. ASP controller, home, action, no, I don't want that. Yeah, I don't want this one. There we go, anchor tag helper. Let's see what you have to say. Use speaker, speaker inbound, ASP controller, ASP action, all speakers, don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. Route dash value. This looks like what we want to do. Route ID. Action detail, controller, speaker, route ID. Okay, this is exactly what we want to do. So let's go back here and kind of paste this here for now. But essentially we want, let's get rid of all of you. ASP dash controller We want the contact controller ASP dash action equals details, and then ASP dash route ID equals at model dot contact ID. Hey, why are you misbehaving? Oh, don't want that. We want at contact dot contact ID, and then here we want to display the at contact dot contact ID. Here we go. Let's delete you now. And then we need to close you. There we go. And let's get rid of you because we no longer need you. It's a little bit easier than that HTML link. Let's restart you. Let's clear out your cookies. There are no cookies there to be cleared. Refresh. Now if I look here, we should see the details. There we go. Now if I click on me, I get that detail. I can go back, click on Brady, and it's back. So now we got that link working. Now let's clean up the text a little bit. So let's do a little niceties. So let's start off with the full name as the display. So I think it was h1 class equals display one, and let's put in the model dot first name, and then let's put the email address underneath it. Treat it like a resume. And then we're going to do another line, and then let's see some details. Now your user interface might be different. No one ever said I was a great designer. Name, and then we got the 3 name fields, and then important dates, and then we're going to want to do something with this image, so let's just separate it for now. Now you notice in the previous one, it's just kind of, unless there's a HTML break in some way, shape, or form, it just kind of repeats it. So after the heading to name, we're just going to have first name, middle name, last name kind of repeat after each other. So let's go and tweak that a little bit. Let's see the topography. What are some ways that we can do that? We can close you for now because we're not going to need that. We already looked at the lead a little bit. We don't really want to do that. We don't have that. We don't have that. Don't have that. There's really nothing in there for that outside of sizes. So let's take a look at the components. Let's see forms, because forms usually works well. We're not going to create a form right now, so that doesn't really cover what we want to do. So let's see if there is something else here. Input group. Now, although that's close, we're going to want to do something with that. We don't want badges. Don't need no stinking badges. I think there is something called the, here we go. There is something, let's see, in the code section. Nope. Oh, here it is, description list item. This is what I was thinking of. So we gonna want to do this. So let's go and create description line items for each of them. So let's just paste this text here and then do that for here. So we want to create a DL, and this is going to be of class row. That gives it its styling. How long does that row go for? DL goes all the way to the end. Okay, cool. So it's separated by the DT and DD. So let's do that. So we got a DT class equals COL SM-3. I'll explain what that does in a minute, but for now, let's just create the basic shell. Class equals CLO. Come on. Sometimes IntelliSense gets the best of you. So that's a row, and what do we have? 3 of them. So let's go and do 3 of them here. So that's 3, and then we're gonna have 2 for dates. Oh, we're gonna put you in a DT row for DL. Class equals row. Okay. So let's put in our first name in the first one, and then last name. And let's do middle name first. Last name. We can get rid of these. And our important date. Model birthday. And then model anniversary. And those are done and lined up. So now we need to put some kind of text in front of it. That's what, that's why it's broken up into 2 pieces. First name, middle name, last name, birthday, anniversary, and then the image we'll leave fine for now. Why are you complaining? What deal didn't I close? Oh, this one. So now we have a list that's going to display this. Now this column small 3, that's what the COL SM3 stands for. Bootstrap is based off of what's called a grid system. So it takes a grid. If we go and look at the layout section, it takes a page and divides it by 12, aka the grid. And then it separates those grids into subsections. So it takes the 12, and then that 3 says how much of a percentage of that 12. And there's some whole reasoning why they choose 12, and you can read the details about it. That's well above and beyond. But by default, it's going to take up the full page, or the full width of what it's called its container, its host, and then break it up into 12. So this SM3 says use 3 of the 12 bricks, so essentially 25%. And this says use 75%, and then it repeats. The reason why we don't have separate lines in here is because we have used up all 12, so we'll go over the next line. In the event that we shrink it to be too small to fit within a reasonable stretch, it'll just start stacking them on top. The SM stands for on the smallest device. I want you to use that. And again, I could do a whole entire thing on Bootstrap. Read up on the layout if you want more data. So let's go and restart this bad boy and see what we look like now. Contacts, delete the cookies. I'm going to spend tonight trying to figure out how to get rid of that, those stops. And everyone has a name. Let's choose Jane Alice. There we go. So now we have Jane's email address in here. I guess I did first name instead of full name. Her email address, and then first name Jane, blah, blah, blah. If you notice, as I shrink this, eventually those names will start wrapping on top of each other. So now they're right below each other. And that's some of the functionality that Bootstrap brings to the table. Let's fix these two things. So we have her email address here. I want to be able to create a clickable link to that. So let's go and do that. And then we're going to display something for the image in the event that we have an image for that person. So this, again, we are going to want to create a link. So this is going to be href equals mail to, that's the shortcut for mailing, and then model dot email address. And then, oops. And then the email address. Email at, and then we should be able to click on that. Now let's do something for the name or for the image. So Bootstrap has a nice little image feature around the components. I thought I had the components selected already. Where did you go? Where did you go? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's content. Images. There you go. We can do a thumbnail or put wrappers around it, or we can do a picture. I don't know what that. Oh, as if we're doing CSS. But we're gonna, let's just do a rounded one here. So I'm going to copy out this code and then do this. Let's paste that here. For the source, we want model dot image URL, and the alt text, let's just put the person's full name. Model dot full name, and then that should work. So now if there's an image, it will display that. And let's fix this to show the full name. But we don't want to display that gigantic annoying X if there isn't a image URL. So let's go and fix that. So we're going to create an if statement. If not string dot is null or empty, model dot image URL. I want you to do that. So this is saying if my string isn't null or empty, go through and display this section with the image. So now if we start and rerun it, come back here. I can't click it fast enough anymore. Click contacts. Let's view me. Now it's not showing anymore. My full name is there and you see the email address. So let's throw a copy of an image of me somewhere. And I think I have one on my site. So I'm going to pick this link and let's update the database with that. So here we go, the image URL. And I think oops, didn't want to do that. And then want to commit that, which can't see because this button is way too big now. There is a submit. Where is that submit? I don't want to add a new row. Oh, there it is. Submit. So now we have an entry in the database. Let's go back and view contact data for me. Hit refresh. And there we go. We have an image now in here. If I go to someone else, let's go my wife. I don't think we have an image for her. Nothing. So there we go. We went and added a details page for the contact. Granted, it's not the prettiest, but we've seen it. We've seen how we can change it, how we can change links in there, how we can have conditional logic to turn on and off features. We look at our contacts. We created a header page with hyperlinks to go to it. What we'll end up doing tomorrow is, taking us to the next level. What do I want to do when I want to go and add this person or go and add a new person? So we're going to look at adding an add button and a delete button to here and what actions we're going to take on that. That's all I have for today. Hopefully you learned something or learned what not to do. Any questions, feel free to reach out to me on any one of the social media email addresses, which is popping up on the screen. Have a lovely day, and I will chat with you later.